Okay, hi everybody. I'm Surbhi. I am a data journalist based in Mumbai. For the Equal Measures 2030 fellowship, we've done two projects. These are projects jointly done with two of the other co-fellows, Shreya and Akshi. These are two stories which have already been published in the course of the last few months. I'll quickly take you through both of them. Yeah. So the idea is to look at women's representation in decision-making roles, including public service, public administration, public leadership. And for this, we've done two stories. One is looking at the gender imbalance in climate talks, which is looking at the COP26 data and other data from other COP events, and looking at how much do women really get represented in these global negotiations. And the other one we did was a story on asking a basic question, such as why there have been so few women in India's civil services. Both of them tie up to SDG 5.5 and SDG 16.7.1b, which say that which basically talk about ensuring responsive, inclusive, participatory, and representative decision making, and including women in these roles. I'll quickly go to the next slide. So this is a glimpse of the first piece. This is not loading in Tableau Public, but happy to show you on. This is the online piece. And this is the print piece. I'll go back to. This is the first piece on COP26. So we looked at the representation of women across all COP events, and starting from COP1 to COP26. And globally, what do we see? That no COP summit till date has seen equal representation. Only 3 in every 10 delegates at COP26 were women, and about 93, that is half of 195 participating nations, had less than 33% female delegates. Women have also never formed more than 33% of India's delegation as well. So this is the scene for, this is the global representation, and this is the scenario for India. It's not loading. Yeah. Then we look at which are the countries who sent no women as part of their delegations. Three countries, actually 4 countries, Turkmenistan, Yemen, and North Korea, and Holy See had no women as part of the delegation, their delegation. About 3 countries had less than 10%, 4 countries actually, which are Libya, Pakistan, Turkmenistan, and Mauritania. Most of the world, most of the developing world, I would say, had representation between 11 to 33%. And this is really in contrast with when you look at the Western world, Europe and America, which has higher representation between 33 to 51%. And the East-West divide and North-South divide is quite visible. And one can think of whether, this correlates with countries being richer. Do richer countries, richer nations send more women as part of their delegations? And finally, very few countries had women, which were more than 51% of their delegations, and above 70%, there were hardly 2 or 3 countries, Mexico being one of them. Then we looked at, it was not just representation of sheer number, but also the speaking time. If you look at so this is data from pre-COP sessions, which were held virtually between May and June prior to the actual event. And in these sessions, it's not just about how many women turned up, it's also about how much did they get to speak. And you'd see that we're far from parity and far from having equal voices in these sessions. So not just, we didn't have enough, women didn't have enough time when compared to men, but also you could see that women spoke for 70 minutes, 60 minutes, 90 minutes in different plenaries. But when you compare it with men, it's less than half actually. It's not significant at all. This is the first story, and perhaps Shreya would talk to you more about why this is important. I'm sure I'm running you through the trends and the data, and maybe she's done a deep dive on how why it is important to have women on these boards in global climate negotiations, because being vulnerable, marginalized community, the effects are felt disproportionately on women. Their lives, livelihoods, food security, everything, it's very disproportionate. The second story is done with Akshi, and I was hoping that she would present more on this. Here again, I'll take you through the trends in the data. I'm just going to check if she's joined. Okay, no. So I'll briefly touch upon what are the factors behind the data which lead to fewer women being part of the Indian administrative services at the same time. Okay, so this piece was published in India Spend in January. Women are underrepresented in the highest ranks of public administration. This is a global phenomena. Looking at G20 countries, you can see that Canada has the highest representation of women in civil services, which is close to 50%, but not there yet. Followed by Australia, UK, South Africa, Mexico. America is at 34%. Germany is at 20%, and a lot of G20 nations, India, China, Turkey, South Korea, we are all below 33%, which is, I would think, the bare minimum. 1 in 3 people should be a woman, right? So we analyzed data on women's representation in the IAS, and we interviewed several IAS officers regarding this question of representation in the civil services. We looked at 3 data sources. One is data from Trivedi Center for Political Data at Ashoka University. The other is both government verified data sets, which is the central agency which conducts the civil services exam, and the National Informatics Center, which is a government office which helps in building digital infrastructure, and their data. What do we find? So first of all, we find that women have, while representation is improving in the civil services, women have never crossed the 1/3 mark. The government has repeatedly told the parliament that they strive to have a workforce which reflects gender balance, but little has changed on the ground. So there are incentives like waiving off or 100 rupee fee for women to incentivize them to write the exam and apply for this. Just one comment before I go into the reasons and the trajectory of how a career of a woman pans out in the civil services as compared to male civil servants. The civil services exam is an optional exam. It's not a compulsory exam. You can take it between the ages of 21 and 32, and you get 6 attempts. It's not a compulsory exam. However, it takes away very essential years of your life if you don't make it in the 6 attempts, which is between 21 to 32. So we looked at how many women versus men or girls versus boys at that stage really write the exam. So nothing really has changed between 2008 and 2018. The representation was around 24%, rounded off here, of women writing the exam in 2008, and 2018 it rose up very marginally to 32%. That's in a decade's time. You haven't really seen a great improvement in the first stage of women aspiring to enter the civil services. The second trend we noticed was that among the people who are writing the exam, women typically drop off, in the second, third, or fourth attempt. So so about 60% of all people who signed up for the exam, 60% of the women write the first attempt, 50% of the men write the first attempt. But at some point, this graph sort of tilts, and you see that more men are writing the exam in the 4th, 5th, 6th attempts compared to women. And you can see the same thing happening in the mains exam. There are 2 stages, preliminary exam and the main exam, and the tilt is very clear. More women write it in the beginning, but at some point, they sort of drop off. And why is this happening? We spoke to a lot of IAS officers, and it wasn't really a surprise to understand that, there is a lot of family pressure. You have, the roles of caregiving and taking care of the family and raising a family. It's all burdened on the woman of the family. So at some point you have to also get married in this between 21 to 32. And if you don't make it in the 4th, 5th, 6th attempt, all those years behind you are seen as gap years, which don't really look good. And it's hard to find a suitor for you. It's hard to find, the marriage market for a woman so-called goes down. Whereas this actually happens, when we spoke to civil servants, this also actually happens after they clear the exam. So it's not like there's a respite either or. If you don't crack it, you wasted 2 years, it's hard to find a groom, and that's the only mindset families go with. And even if you clear the exam, it's harder to find a groom, because now they know that you have a job that you are going to focus on, more than maybe perhaps your family. So the third trend we looked at was what is the age at which women join. And after this, just one slide is left, so I'll wrap up quickly. And okay. You see that about 50% of women join by the age of 26 years, which further sort of strengthens our hypothesis about, there being marriage pressure on women. So 50% of women sort of get in by 26 years. The corresponding age for men here is 33%. Once inside the civil services, we also notice, and these facts have also been mentioned multiple times in reports from the UN, which are, so one of the reports which came out in 2021 was Gender Equity in Public Administration, which talks about how women are typically assigned to softer postings. So you will find within the men and the women in the civil services, you would find more of them taking care of portfolios such as cultural affairs, welfare, education, women and child development, health, family, whereas finance, urban, law and order are all very, very male dominated and, so to speak, hard portfolios to have. So you don't typically see a lot of them there. So this is the trajectory we looked at for women's representation in the civil services as part of the second story. And I really wish Akshi was here, because I hope she did a lot of on-ground reporting also for this. I actually don't know why. I don't know. I mean, till yesterday we were on track with this. And with that, I'd like to end. Feedback, questions, and comments are welcome. I also like to thank Campbell Powers, my Tableau mentor, who, like a wizard, just solved all my doubts all the time. And Akshi and Shreya, of course, for being my co-fellow authors, and also everybody, all the co-fellows, because they kept the spirit going and there's a lot of peer learning in this cohort. So I really like that. And apart from that, the fellowship organizers, Tableau Foundation, and also the anonymous people on the internet who keep me inspired with regards to Tableau and data visualization. Thank you.